How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Saturday night. It is the Earthmaster here on this end of the microphone. About 8:19 p.m. California time, September 28th, 2024 is the date. Latest activity shows some movement there in Southern California. We've been watching a trend of earthquake activity here pop up across Southern California here today. And let's go ahead and take a look and see what we got going on here. Started off with a couple earthquakes down across the Fontana area and the Malibu region. Since then, since my update this morning, we've seen more earthquake activity here in a kind of a circular pattern right here, roughly about the southern end of the San Andreas Fault, all the way across this area of Los Angeles, over here across Malibu, and even some activity off the coast of Malibu now with a 3.2. Pretty obvious what's going on here. Look at the pattern of fault systems out here that run up against the plate boundary, right? This is the Pacific side of the plate boundary, and of course we have a lot of strain and stress. You can see these patterns out here that build up against this area, against the plate boundary, and it's all pointing still towards the San Andreas Fault, folks. Pretty obvious in the view of things, the overall view of things. Is not just one area that's seen an uptick. We're back to seeing an overall pattern out here today of elevated activity all over the place in Southern California. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Malibu area first. I was just down here, was it yesterday or the day before? I don't know. I've been so busy here the last couple days. Goodness. Malibu area. 2.7 earthquake from last night and a 1.2 this morning. Earlier today, another earthquake, 3.2, just off the coast. It has been reviewed by a seismologist, and what's odd about this earthquake is it's away from our swarming area. If we look at the last 30 days of earthquake activity out here, the swarming region has been mainly centered in this area west of Malibu on the Malibu Coast Fault, which is fairly lengthy and capable of producing a large damaging earthquake. It's been a little while. Also south here off the coast of the Rancho Palos Verdes area, I was just down here a couple days ago. They had a little earthquake swarm as well. Really nothing recent here. It looks like the last one, get rid of that. The last one was back on the 8th, it looks like. So really nothing filling in here now, but it's very possible we could see that fill in with what's going on out here today. A lot of earthquake activity all over the place. So this little earthquake here off the coast of Malibu, a new area for a 3.2, and it's away from the Malibu Coast Fault. So it's a little odd one there. But not surprising, we're starting to see new areas fill in out here across Southern California. Well, our typical swarming regions here over the last couple months, Bakersfield, Malibu, Fontana area, Puente Hills Thrust Fault, Ridgecrest, areas down here across the San Andreas Fault have been hit almost repeatedly over the last 8 weeks or so, with periods of quietness. It looks like that's came to an end today. There's a swarming activity across the Fontana area again, a 3.2 coming in. Now, today actually is a little bit elevated in terms of earthquakes above 2.5. Now, a lot of folks just like to claim that, well, we don't need to hear about these little microquakes. Well, yeah, right. All these little microquakes are still earthquakes, and it tells you where strain is building up out here, where little swarms are taking place. If you were to ignore that, that's ignoring... pretty much ignoring science out there. Goodness, don't want to do that. All these earthquakes are earthquakes regardless. But 2.5 and above is definitely elevated out here today across the West Coast, with about 7 of them. Even Nevada getting back in on the mix as well. Look how many earthquakes we've had today above 2.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's actually for since about midnight. Total in the last 24 hours, 7. But it's a continued trend that's on the uptick right now as we speak. And again, not in just one location here, folks. It's in various locations here of recent swarming activity. and newer regions seem to be getting hit, such as this earthquake off the coast of Malibu. I'd watched the Rancho Palos Verdes area with that little swarm they had here in the last 30 days had let that little swarm off of this area. I'd watch these other regions that really haven't seen any earthquake activity here recently. Things may start to pick up in that area. And it's all got a pattern here. You can pretty much draw a pattern right across this area of the San Andreas Fault. I'm just wondering how much more we're going to be able to handle out here across this area. Little quake right now in the last hour off the Brawley seismic zone. Couple earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault today, southern branch. We had this 2.9 from this morning, and another one here. Let's see, that was prior to the 2.9, a little 0.6, but again, right on the San Andreas Fault. This is, if you have any other fault system out here around Southern California that's well overdue, a plate boundary that's well overdue here, that's so locked and loaded. We've been talking about this for how long? I don't know. Right? The big one's coming. We've been hearing about it for decades, right? Well, decades have passed, and now we're that much closer. We're living in the future, so to speak, in the time of the big one. The question is, when is it going to hit? And all this elevated activity that we've seen here recently is a good indicator that it may be happening very soon. Here is the last... I pulled up the last 2 months of earthquake activity, 1.9 and above, to show you guys our area of interest out here recently with swarming regions, right? Bakersfield seen that 5.2 earthquake, the largest so far out here in the series of earthquakes. And look at all the 4s we've had here just in the last 2 months alone. That is a lot of activity. If we were to bring back a couple more months, and we would add a couple more 4s on there. And it's been an elevated event out here, more so than at any time in the past here, since I think 1986 is what the Dr. Lucy Jones has mentioned, world-renowned seismologist, the face of the earthquake community out here in Southern California. So that alone tells you something, right? Elevated increasing earthquake activity, and these do not relieve strain out here, folks. You've heard it from Dr. Lucy Jones, and you've been hearing it from me. These earthquakes do not relieve or prevent the big one or push it off further, right? We're buying time with these little 4-pointers. No, if anything. And I keep trying to point this out. It's so frustrating here because it's not just one specific area. Say for example, the Bakersfield area was just seeing a lot of earthquake activity, which they have over the last couple months, and the rest of California here, just any other day, a couple small microquakes here and there, but it's not the case. We've seen 4s all over the place here and elevated activity all around the San Andreas Fault in numerous regions here. There's a pattern going on that points an arrow, kind of a left-pointing arrow out here, and it follows the land out here where the fault system is, the Garlock Fault shear zone, down to the San Andreas Fault here. There's so many earthquakes that have popped up here. It's forming a pattern, and then when you include the activity out here across western Nevada, there's definitely a lot of stress out here, folks. But if you think about it, as we're pushing this area up north, it's kind of moving off to the northwest right here, right? The Pacific Plate. But if you look at these fault patterns here, these fault systems, it looks more or less like a north and then a northwestward turn up here. You can follow all these faults here. You can see it in the land as well. And as you get that pressure going up here, up against the North American Plate, all that earthquake activity is the result of all this strain, and it's pushing up right on the San Andreas Fault. Now, it's not ready to pop. Well, I think it's ready, but it hasn't popped yet. It hasn't unzipped yet. So the pressure's got to go somewhere and build up. It's not only building up there on the San Andreas Fault. We know it's been wound up for so many years here, over 300 years, and it's well overdue. This is one fault system out here, plate boundary. You could say that's well overdue. So from there, we've noticed increasing pressure movement up here across the Garlock Fault shear zone. So all this pressure along the plate boundary is affecting this shear zone here, which I believe plays a part in either this triggering the San Andreas Fault, say having a large earthquake here on the Garlock Fault shear zone, or maybe vice versa. Maybe the San Andreas Fault here triggers some further large-scale activity up north with the Garlock Fault shear zone. I think they play a major part in triggering one another. Depends on it. Just who knows which one's going to pop first. But all that strain has been in a pattern up here across this region, north of the Garlock Fault shear zone here, which would make sense, where that strain is kind of building up here against this area. So there's so much. There's just a lot going on here, folks. Look how many earthquakes I pulled up here of the last 2 months. Now this is just 1.9 and above. Almost 1,000 earthquakes here. Now, if we were to pull up all the little microquakes, 0.5, 0.6, I rooted those out just to show where all the significant swarms are taking place. Ridgecrest area, Bakersfield, Malibu, new activity off the coast of Malibu, Rancho Palos Verdes area, just out here across the San Pedro Channel. Now, this earthquake swarm is not on the Palo Verdes fault system here, which is a fairly lengthy one, is capable of producing a 7.5 earthquake, I believe they said. There's so many out here that's just overdue, folks. It's scary. But this earthquake activity off of the landslide region here, a little separate swarm. Not for sure which fault system that's associated with, but they've had their own little swarm. The Puente Hills Thrust Fault, which is right about here, had their own little earthquake swarm, and there was more earthquakes here below the 1.9 threshold, but this is just 1.9 above, the largest of 4.4. And that system, that thrust fault, it's a blind thrust fault that goes directly underneath Los Angeles, and more so over here across towards the West Hollywood area and Beverly Hills region, is capable of producing a 7.5 earthquake. And no one knows exactly when the last one struck out here. It's supposed to be every couple thousand years or so, but as far as a definitive date when the last one was, I still can't find it. I mean, there's a little bit of information, but I don't have a date. But this system out here capable of producing a 7.5, and we've seen a little swarm on that as well. The Fontana earthquake swarms here, couple different regions. Now, if we were to show all magnitudes, there would be two distinct regions here, but these are just, again, 1.9 above. The largest, say, 3.9 in the first cluster. Second cluster over here looks to be a 2.7, which struck back in August. But there's a lot more than this. What I'm saying is just two separate areas across this area, the Fontana earthquake swarm. Lake Elsinore area down here seeing their own little earthquake swarm. 3.6 striking back out there in August. There's a lot more earthquake activity in that swarm as well. And, not to mention all the clustering going on here across the San Jacinto fault zone, and a lot of microquake activity brushed up here in the last couple months right up against the plate boundary. Barstow area, they had their own little separate swarm, including a 4.9 and some other earthquake activity out here, although this has been fairly quiet. But the middle activity out here is pretty much the backing up of my theory of how the pressure out here against the plate boundary is affecting areas north here of the Garlock Fault shear zone. And I believe firmly as well activity across western Nevada. It's an overall large picture, but you got to remember these plates here are large in themselves. It's a two large plates, North American plate, Pacific plate over here, general plate movement here to the northwest, southeast here for the North American plate. So it makes sense to see a lot of pressure inland here following built-up pressure here across the plate boundary. And again, not just one region here, folks. Pretty much draw a significant pattern out here. Western Nevada, across the Garlock Fault shear zone, down south here in a... and more recently, you can see that on today's activity. A circular, half a circle type pattern here across this region. And it's just right there. It's all straining this area. The plate boundary is highly strained. Another earthquake here near Thousand Palms in the last couple minutes since I've been chatting. Just right off the San Andreas Fault here. So be on guard, folks. It looks like we're in for a little bit of uptick here Obviously, we've seen it here today, and it appears as though things are continuing into this Saturday evening. The significance of all of this is the potential that the increasing pressure out here, and it's not just in one little area, it's a broad region here that's seeing this elevated activity, and the potential outcome could be a large earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. Whether it's going to be, more than likely, it's going to be roughly around the Garlock Fault shear zone here southward along the southern segment. And it's capable of producing an 8.1 earthquake, folks. But, who's to say that maybe we won't see something back over here? Some of these other faults that are well overdue. That has the potential and built-up strain across the area. Wouldn't be good for the folks out here across the Rancho Palos Verdes area. They're already dealing with a whole bunch of stuff there for land movement. But, Southern California, it's a landmine of fault systems out here. And some of those fault systems have gone quiet for so many years. And it's just a matter of time. But I can't help but wonder, these past couple winters out here, we had some tropical systems here, I think last year as well, that brought a lot of rainfall, significant rainfall out here across Southern California in the winters, and the elevated snow melt and the lake level waters out here rising. I can't help but wonder if that is the result of all this elevated, or the elevated earthquake activity is a result of these rainfalls here that we've seen recently, past couple of years. It makes sense, though, right? A little bit of lubrication out there. Takes a little time for that water to percolate down below into some of these faults, but it looks like things are in motion right now across Southern California. So we'll continue to watch it. I do have a number of seismograph stations down there. Looks pretty quiet for now. Parkfield, Petrolia is in Northern California. There's a station Barrett down here across San Diego. And that's another region that's got a lot of fault systems out here, but they've been awfully quiet down there for now. Last 30 days of earthquake activity, not a whole lot. A couple smaller microquakes outside the San Diego area, but goodness, yeah, they're a little quiet. Northern California, the Bay Area, one earthquake off the Hayward Fault here near Oakland. This is another fault system that's well overdue. We've been living in some wonderful times of advancement as far as human civilization goes. Infrastructure built up all over the place, communication systems advanced, and but we got to remember that there's a control factor out here. Mother Nature has control of what's going on, and that's something mankind cannot prevent, and that's large earthquakes out here. But a lot of people complacent, a lot of people just living the life and the fast life out here, and forget that there's hazards out here. Hayward Fault, a big one. I think that's got a high percentage of seeing a large earthquake here in the next. It could be any time, but they put a low percentage out on like 10, 15 years or so. But it's built up. There's definitely quite a bit of strain out here, and that goes through some highly populated areas there in the East Bay region. A couple of smaller earthquakes there today, and one in the last hour. Not a whole lot in Northern California. This is the Clear Lake volcanic field where the hydrothermal plants are in full force, creating energy. It's a daily thing down there. Not a whole lot across the Cascadia for now. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map here tonight. 250 epicenters of tremor, again centered around the central coast of Oregon, and a little bit down south here as well. It's been that way. Yesterday, I think same area. Day before that, same area. I think the day before that as well, same area. So this region, prior to the most recent activity that we're seeing right now here, days of tremor confined to this region, is catching up. Months prior to this activity, most of the movement was up here across the Vancouver Island Range and Northern California. So we're seeing areas of the Cascadia subduction zone that has not seen tremor activity play catch up out here. So that means, just inching closer and further to the next Cascadia. That was 324 years ago, that big old 9.0 earthquake out here. Today, that would do a lot of damage out here. West Coast, I'm telling you, it is just a matter of time. And that's not fear-mongering. That's pure science out there. It's good to be on guard. Preparedness is a key that you want to learn for sure, right? We can't become a statistic there. We want to be able to survive a large earthquake the best we can. Not a whole lot going on across the Intermountain West areas here. Yellowstone National Park looks pretty quiet. Texas area, some of these oil fields getting hit. Nothing going on across the New Madrid seismic zone for now. And let's see what we got across the world here. I know Hawaii's jumping a little bit here with a, they downgraded. That was a three-pointer that came in out here around the Loihi Seamount. That's all we need, this thing to start kicking up. But you never know. This is going to be the general land, new land out here. Many years down the road. There's the former land, if you can follow the Hawaii Islands out there throughout time. And again, the Pacific Plate moving off to the northwest here as it travels over the hot spot, and which creates the Hawaii Islands out here, the chain of them. So new land. Ultimately, we'll see eruptions and whatnot out here. So it makes sense to see elevated earthquake activity eventually kicking up out here across this area. Kilauea Volcano. A couple smaller earthquakes up there. Let me go double check this here real quick, see what we got. Refresh this real quick. The volcano still at a yellow and advisory. Taking a little sharp rise up here in the last 6 hours or so, it looks like. That's the inflation chart. There's our past month here. That's the magma displacement from the summit off to the Middle East Rift Zone, where we've seen the most recent fissure activity take place. But that has calmed down and halted as of a few days ago. But looks like we're starting to come back up. So a little bit of inflow of magma back into the region here. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. Western areas of the Pacific Plate. Now, looking at the earthquake 3D globe here, shows some older quake activity out here across the western areas of the Pacific Plate. Not a whole lot going on. And it's always going to be, it almost seems like it's one or the other. It's going to be California, West Coast areas really ramping up, while this area is quiet, or vice versa. This area could be very active and things tone down out here. So right now it looks as though California has been ramping up here in the last 24 hours. Minimal activity here across the western areas of the Pacific Plate. And I think we need to watch California until we see some further large adjustment out here. Some deeper activity into the Indonesia Islands area, a pair of deep earthquakes here in this area, but nothing big. Again, this is all some older movement quakes here. In California, it's just rocking and rolling. Even down south here, it looks like off the coast of Mexico, some movement kicking up out here with a 4.1 and a couple other 3s down there into the area. Let me see here. 2.7 coming in right now to Idaho. I've seen that on the globe right now. I was like, whoa, what's going on there? That's off of the Sawtooth Fault system there. This area can see a little bit of swarming. This is a region that had a 6-pointer out here back in 2019, if I remember right, is the year that we've seen a 6-pointer out here in Nevada, Idaho, and I think even Salt Lake City area seen a 6-pointer. 2019, if I remember right. A couple small earthquakes here in the last 30 days, but this looks like it may be starting to pick up right now. but still an overall sign here of the general stress pattern that's going on out here, ramping up across the eastern Pacific. California right smack dab on it. One odd earthquake way up north here. Not for sure how to pronounce that exactly, so I'll pass on that, but way up here off the plate boundary, well north of Russia. Let's see if we can see it on the globe here. It's definitely a little odd. I don't recall the last time I've seen some movement up there. But for now, just a 4.9 earthquake. South America area, a couple smaller quakes down there. Generally common across that major subduction zone. Really nothing of abnormal activity. The Atlantic Ocean quiet, and the Mediterranean region out here toning down after a couple days of elevated activity out here in the 3 and 4 range all across this area. Not just confined to one region, but a broad escalated event for a little while. But all these rings here fairly dark in color, indicating some older quake movement. So keep an eye here. Keep an eye here on California, folks. Definitely lighten up. Is that a newer quake coming in right now? Let's see here. Oh, that's from 1956. So the most recent one's going to be just off that San Andreas fault right here. Space weather activity. Give a quick glance here. Fairly steady. Not a whole lot of flaring going on here across the solar region right now. Consistently stable in the low C flare category. Number of sunspots coming around the Earth-facing side of the sun, but wow, yeah, these have even this region back here has deteriorated quite a bit. Not seeing a whole bunch out here, folks, unfortunately. I guess if you were to twist my arm and maybe make me pick one, it's going to be a hard one. As far as magnetic complexity, I'm guessing maybe right over here. That's a big maybe. That's going to be sunspot number 3890 or 3835 there, which harbors a beta structure. It is growing, so that's about it, though. There's really not a whole lot of flare threat out there. Goodness. 10% chance for X flare, M flare at 55. That's fairly modest. 99% chance for a C flare. Nothing major in the Aurora forecast here for now, folks. There is some chat going on about maybe another hurricane coming back into the area here in a couple weeks. So it's a ways out. But I got to remember here with Helene, that model was a couple weeks out as well, and it was showing some type of tropical system here in the Gulf of Mexico, and it verified 100%. So we have to take these models here lightly when it comes to forecasting so far out, but also keep in mind that if the models stay consistent, well, then we could be talking about a hurricane. Look at this. This is following almost a little bit further to the west, but this is the same type of model, same path here that Helene was showing weeks prior to the arrival here, when it hit Florida and caused a whole bunch of stuff going on out here weather-wise, and dam failures and whatnot. But around the 5th of October, and this is a little ways out, but it's not a long ways out, is showing some type of tropical system here in the Gulf of Mexico again, hitting the Florida area and basically hammering this region once again with a lot of heavy rainfall. Now the models here not showing a huge hurricane, but it's some type of tropical system there nonetheless, and we got to watch this because another repeat here on top of already saturated soils would be quite devastating. It's already devastating out here from what was received in terms of rainfall, precipitation, and a storm surge here along the Florida area and up into the Carolinas and Tennessee area. Goodness, those poor folks need a break. So we're going to have to watch that pretty closely. And then after that, really nothing hinting. But again, around the 5th of October, we're going to have to keep an eye on this. So we'll keep checking back here on the weather models. California, anyone want to trade places with me out here? If you like 104, 105 degrees, come on out. I'll take a snow-covered cabin any day. We got literally temperatures coming up in the low 100s this week, this coming week here, 104, 105 degrees. So I'm not looking forward to that. Northern California, the Great Death Valley. Long-term models out here, weather forecasting models, are showing maybe some type of clipper system out here for Oregon and Washington, leaving Northern California out of it, which is not very nice. After that, I don't know, maybe middle of October, we might start to see a little pattern change out here. Far as temperature averages here, let me show you guys the model runs for the next couple days here. Look at this massive high pressure building up here. Midweek, California, Northern California, that's when we're going to see our 104, 105 degree temperature. Cooler weather up north here in a weird linear fashion out here. It's a little odd to see this broad scale high pressure and a massive low pressure up here. I mean, it seems like it's lengthy. Looks a little odd. Normally when you got high pressure, we're going to see a huge dip out here across the eastern portion of the country, but it's in a more zonal flow here, west to east pattern, which is going to keep all the cooler weather away for now. Look at this. Oh man, October, 100 degrees in October. That is just uncalled for, folks. That is some cruel and unusual punishment. It's not going away. Goodness, October 12th. Ah, please go away. Please make it go away. Cooler temperatures out here, looks like around the 12th of October or so, but I'm hoping this changes. I don't like that massive high ridge. It's a mood killer. I'm done with summer. I don't even want to go outside anymore because it's just so hot and miserable. Seismograph stations look a little odd. It looks like maybe a network error that's going on, but at least the data is still coming in. A little choppy, but for the most part, the earthquake activity is calm across the seismograph stations there for now. Keep an eye on California. Again, elevated threes popping up all over the place, not just one area. So that tells me right there that it's an overall regional sign of stress out here on the plate boundary. And we all know what the plate boundary is and where it's at. Okay, San Andreas Fault, capable of producing an 8.1 here across the southern segment. And it's well overdue, folks. I've been hearing about it since I was a kid. Told my kids that. And now here we are, a generation later and many years later, and it still hasn't happened. But I guarantee you it will. Question is when. Time is ticking, and just a matter of time here, folks. All right, I'm out of here. Enjoy your Saturday night. Take care. We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning for the Sunday morning update. Stay safe out there, folks.